All right, y'all. It has been 4 weeks since I last checked in with you. It is now mid-July. Training camps are opening across the NFL this week. And the first preseason game is actually 2 weeks from right now. That is, of course, the annual Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. That always kicks off the NFL season. And in fact, this year I will be in attendance at that game because there are two Denver Broncos legends being inducted into the Hall this year. Mr. Pat Bowlen, rest in peace. He passed away this spring after a long health battle. But he is the only owner that I've ever known of my favorite sports franchise, and now he'll be memorialized in Canton forever. I wanted to be there for that. In addition, Champ Bailey, one of, if not the best one-for-one player trade in NFL history. They don't happen that often, but the Denver Broncos traded Clinton Portis to the Washington Redskins straight up for Champ Bailey. Now, in the short term, it was actually a pretty good deal for both squads, but in the long run, Champ's going into the Hall, so I gotta say Denver probably came out on top on that one. Let's talk about developments over the last month. So in the June video, my first video of the fantasy football season, if you haven't watched it, link is below. In that video, we talk about the $25 Best Ball Championship put on by Draft, where the winner will take home $1 million. It's full of strategy, structure, and a lot of players that we like for the 2019 season. Since then, Draft has released a $5 mini best ball version of this tournament, where the winner will take home $20,000. So today we're going to compare and contrast those two tournaments and decide where our money is best invested between the two. But before we get to that, let's talk about some player developments that have happened over the last month. Todd Gurley, a player that I've advocated for throughout the early drafting season. As he continued to slide down the draft board, I've taken him frequently in both of these tournaments. Now, since then, I've heard from a number of people whose opinion I value and respect that are more concerned about Todd Gurley's knee and his future in football than I have been previously. So I feel that I have to take this into consideration and let it be a weight in my decision-making going forward, because this is an important thing in fantasy football. Bigger picture, it's an important thing in life in general. Listen to people smarter than you. Find people that are experts in their field and let their opinion help form better decisions for you. In this case, it's not that I think Todd Gurley's career is over or that he's going to have a disastrous season, but it is a situation where I feel that I have plenty of shares of him already. They've given me enough information that I feel that I should hold pat and not draft any more Todd Gurley this summer. Melvin Gordon came out of nowhere last week to let us know that he is planning to hold out heading into training camp and ultimately the regular season if necessary. He's looking for a new contract from the Chargers, and to a degree, I certainly understand where he's coming from, because if you just look at his production, he is outperforming his salary. That being said, I hate when players hold out. It very rarely works out well for them in the long run. See Le'Veon Bell 2018 and a number of players before him. It's just a net negative result for the player and the team. So I hope these two can come together, make it amicable, get a contract in place, and get Melvin Gordon on the field for week 1. As you guys know, I'm heavy on the Chargers in 2019. They're my number one team player pool that I'm pulling from, not only for their regular season production, but with an eye to that week 16 matchup against the Oakland Raiders, which is fantasy football championship week. So I could look at this the exact same way that I'm looking at Gurley and say, I'm concerned, I'm going to slow down on Melvin Gordon. In fact, in this situation, I'm going to go the exact opposite way, and I am doubling down on Melvin Gordon as he pushes into a second round ADP. I now feel that I can take a Devontae Adams, a DeAndre Hopkins, maybe Travis Kelce in the first round and pair them with Melvin in the second. If he does play all 16 games, that's going to be a stellar first and second round, much better than it was before when I was taking Melvin 5th or 6th and then taking a second tier wide receiver in the second round. By far the biggest story, and it just dropped this morning, Tyreke Hill will not be suspended in the 2019 season. Not at all. 0 games. I did not expect that. I thought we might be looking at 4 to 6. A lot of people thought it was going to be even more than that, but the actual number is 0. This is going to have a huge ripple effect on these tournaments, and it's going to be discussed heavily because a number of people have drafted Tyreek Hill, most recently in the 3rd and 4th round, but earlier in the spring, even later than that. He was going past the 10th round when no one thought he was going to play football again. This is an issue because a lot of squads are now stacked with star players above Tyreek Hill, and then they added possibly the number 1 wide receiver in football at the very end. Now, I am one of those individuals. If you look at my total drafts in 2019, I've taken Tyreek Hill in about 25% of them, just based on the chance that something like this could happen, and now it has. That being said, I am not celebrating today. I don't know what the truth of the matter is. I don't know how much Tyreek has done. I don't know how much his girlfriend is a problem in this situation, but their child is certainly getting the raw end of this deal. and it just doesn't seem like a positive thing no matter how you look at it. That being said, Tyreek is going to play in 2019, and there is going to be some value for the people that took him before this news broke. And it will certainly have an effect on the tournaments that we're going to discuss today. So let's go ahead and get into that. Over 4th of July weekend, Draft surprised us and dropped the $5 mini best ball tournament. Now this follows the exact same structure as the $25 version of the tournament. When you enter the draft, you will be automatically dropped in with 11 other competitors. This is your 12-person league for the first 12 weeks of the season. Step 1, as always, is to win your league. Then all of the league winners will proceed on to week 13 and continue to compete as they whittle down to week 16, where the grand prize will be $20,000. So in comparing the two drafts, I think there are 3 things that we need to consider. Number 1, the competition. Number 2, the rake. And number 3, the payouts. The mini best ball championship has just over 46,000 people, or it will when it's all filled up. The $25 best ball championship will have almost 166,000 people. Obviously, that's a significant difference. But not only is there a difference in the number of competitors, I feel that there is also a difference in the type of competitors. Certainly, there are people that are going to max enter both of these because they just want to get as much money in as they can. But if we're looking at the casual fan, they are probably going to enter the $5 tournament more frequently than they are the $25. So your competition is going to be lighter in the $5 mini best ball. Next up, let's talk about the rake, or the amount of money that Draft will take out of the prize pool to maintain their platform and make a profit as a business. In the $5 mini, it is just over 13% rake. In the $25 best ball, it is almost 16%. This does surprise me because usually it is the opposite. Usually a lower entry fee tournament has a higher rake. In this case, it's flip-flopped. They are comparable, but 2 to 3% is nothing to sneeze at, and it should be considered. Advantage mini. Lastly, we got to look at the payouts. Here are side-by-side comparisons of payouts for the $5 tournament and the $25 tournament. Of course, you can see they vastly vary, especially at the top where $1 million compares to $20,000. And ultimately, that is my biggest deciding factor. Even though both of the first 2 categories we looked at are advantage to the mini, I am ultimately going to invest most of my money from this point forward in the full $25 best ball championship. And here's why. $20,000 is a good chunk of change. I want to be very clear about this. I would be ecstatic to win $20,000. But at the end of the day, it is not life-changing money. It is not quit your job type money. $1 million is potentially life-changing money. It is potentially quit your job type money if you did the right sort of things with that cash. I play fantasy football for fun. At the end of the day, this is a hobby. I take it seriously. Of course, I want to win. So I'm going to be drawn to that $1 million prize, as a lot of other people are. And Draft knows this. That's why they can charge the higher rate. That's why they can get 166,000 people to enter it, because there is a huge number at the top and we're all gunning for it. It's very effective marketing, and I am hook, line, and sinker. Let's go win the million. The only thing I will add to that is I'm not sure why Draft didn't do a $5 version of this tournament that was 166,000 competitors and then made first place somewhere around 200 grand. Obviously, the math there seems to work, but the only hunch I have is I'm wondering if they're actually going to add more mini best balls as we get closer. The only reason I think that is because this tournament is already half full and it's mid-July. A lot of the casual drafters haven't even started thinking about fantasy football yet. It seems odd to me that they would let a tournament fill up in August before we get right near the season and not have another one. So maybe they have 2, 3, 4 more mini best balls planned that will have a different structure, or maybe it's just more with the same structure. I don't know the answer to that. It's just speculation. I wish that they would have had a $5 tournament with a $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 top prize. That would have been intriguing to me, and I'm sure a lot of other people would have felt the same way. But before we finish the July update, I wanted to show you my player ownership. This is a tool you can find right in the Draft app or on the desktop version of the site. You go to the very top and say upcoming. You then choose 2019 best ball. It will tell you how many contests you've entered. In my case, I have now entered 60 of the $5 mini best ball championship and 40 of the $25 version of the tournament for 100 total entries. And in addition to that, I have a handful of entries that are just random tournaments that are not the large prize pool events where I'm just competing with a number of individuals, not a massive field. So if you go into here, at the very top, you will see best ball ownership. The first selection you need to make is between whether you want to see all of your contests, and again, that speaks to whether you've already played some 12-person, 8-person, 6-person leagues, or if you only want to see your tournaments. In this case, that would only be the mini or the full-size best ball tournament. You can choose whatever you prefer on that. In this case, let's just look at the tournaments because that's what we've been talking about in these videos. So you can see here, these are my quarterbacks, how many total shares I have of them. That's how many drafts I've taken them in, what percentage of my drafts that I've taken them in, and then what my entry fees invested in that player are. It's very cool data. Now, I want to reiterate, these are not the players that I think are going to have the absolute best seasons. It's not that I think Matt Stafford is going to be the #1 quarterback this year. It is that I clearly value Matt Stafford and players like him more than my competition does. So as we get to the middle and later rounds of the draft, while he's still lingering around, I say, hell yeah, I'll take him, put him on the squad. And that seems to be happening more frequently than it does with other players. You're going to see this throughout each of my positions here. In running back, Royce Freeman, who we talked a lot about in June, Tariq Cohen, Mark Ingram, those are my top owned. Giovanni Bernard, someone I'm getting at the very back end of drafts that I think still has some fantasy value, but apparently I am in the minority on that one. Wide receiver, Michael Gallup, Marvin Jones, John Brown, Trey Quinn. Literally the 4 players that we talked about in the June video, and I've continued to be able to draft them throughout July. Let's go to tight ends. Jack Doyle, I advocated for throughout the summer. He's right at the top. I've started to pick up a lot of Kyle Rudolph shares, Ricky Seals-Jones. Again, cheap tight ends that you're picking up at the very end as probably either your second or occasionally your third guy. Of course, George Kittle, I'm happy to have 18 shares of. I did want to go back and show you one last thing before I go. Let's look for Tyreek and see exactly how many we have of him. So you can see here, as of today, taken Tyreke Hill in 21 tournaments, which is exactly 21%. Simple math since I've entered 100, and I have $265 in entry fees invested in him. As I said earlier, he has most recently been going in the 3rd and 4th round. I did take a few of him there, but the vast majority of Tyreek that I took is when his average draft position was between 60 and 70 overall. As I mentioned earlier, this is the exact reason it's going to be interesting to watch the ripple effects throughout these tournaments with the Tyreek news. Me, like a number of other players, have him on a number of squads where we got him inexpensively and have a number of receivers ahead of him. People are claiming that they are going to stop drafting because they believe so strongly that the winner has already been determined by someone that has a stacked squad that they got Tyreek at the end. I don't know. Who's to say? Tyreek could still get injured week 1 and this could all be for naught. You never know. I think most of them are probably caught up in the news of the day and will ultimately come around and play in these tournaments. But if they don't, all the better for us because that means more soft money coming in over the next 6 weeks. The next video that I'm going to shoot and release for you guys are my favorite stacks of 2019. Now, this is, of course, the combination of quarterback, receiver, sometimes tight end or running back that you pull from the same NFL team so that when they have a big week on the field, you have a monster week in fantasy. There's some fun combinations you can put together at the end of these drafts that I've been playing around with, and I'd like to share those with you in a couple weeks. So as we move into training camp season, this is always a fun time of the year because there's going to be a lot of news and tidbits that come out of those camps and things that will shape our squads going forward. But my mind tends to be on player safety at this time of year. It just seems like inevitably every July and August when the teams get back together, put the pads on for the first time and get out there in very high temperatures, there are injuries. And unfortunately, a lot of them tend to be season-ending injuries. You know, Darius Geis missed his entire rookie season last year based on a preseason injury. The year before that, I remember Julian Edelman, coming off of his Super Bowl performance, did not play a single down that season. And Tony Romo very famously lost his job to a preseason injury, and then Dak's performance, he never got his job back. And the one I always remember is Jordy Nelson, because that's a player that I traded for literally days before he tore his ACL that summer in my Dynasty League. And not only did he not play at all that season, he was never really the same player again. And listen, I don't want to make light of this. These individuals' health is incredibly important. Of course, they have families just like all of us do. It doesn't matter whose fantasy team they're on. All we can hope for is for the players that do go down this year, because it's going to happen. Speedy recovery to them, that they get back to the same level of player that they were before that. Again, I wish them all well, and I hope that we get as many players as we possibly can to week 1 healthy and ready to play some football. I'll check back in with you guys next month, and I look forward to it.